Can everybody try to be seated, please? Okay, I don't know.
Could I please? No, it's not working.
Yeah, you are. You are.
Could I please ask everybody to be seated, please?
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, unless they have this, yeah, this is. I need to say. So then I need to just take this off. Yeah. So, in order to listen, please put this on. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So, good morning, everybody. Please put your headset on or your earphones so you can hear. And turn off the mobile phones. Thank you. So my name is Christine Engvig. I'm the chair of this meeting, Women Pioneering Global Harmony. And it doesn't work?
You should press.
Is something, what do I press?
Oh, yeah.
You're on.
I'm on.
You're on.
Okay. So I'll repeat. So good morning, everybody. Please put on your headset. It's the only way to hear. My name is Christine Engvig. I'm the chair of this meeting, Women Pioneering Global Harmony. And ask you also to take your cell phone off in this moment. It's a great honor for me, and it's a great honor for all of us that we have the Director General of the United Nations here in Geneva with us, and Tatiana Valovaya. She's the 13th Director General of the United Nations Office at Geneva, and she's the first woman in this position. And she has... Oh, I'm losing this. She has more than 35 years of experience in journalism, diplomacy, and public service. And Mrs. Valovaya has done a significant contribution to our world. And it's an honor to give her the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and welcome to the Palais des Nations. I'm really happy to have all you here for this very important event. And being here, you can see the process of reconstruction. And I think it's very, very important because you are here because more than 100 years ago, the first multilateral organization, League of Nations, was created, established. It has chosen Geneva as its permanent seat. And I'm always saying that this is a tribute to multilateralism. Just think about our predecessors, our ancestors, who after the First World War, after the pandemic, decided nevertheless to invest into the future, to invest in the beautiful palace which will host the multilateral organization. And I think that's a very important lesson because quite often we are not thinking about multilateralism as a long story, but it's a long story, and the United Nations office here is in Geneva exactly because with United Nations inherited this beautiful compound, the tribute to multilateralism system, after United Nations were established. And it's really, I think, very important to talk here about women in leadership, female empowerment. And I would even say that periodically, when I talk to my colleagues here, to the diplomats, I forget how important this issue is, because you look at the room full of diverse faces, full of women, and you think that we're already there, that we do have equal participation of women and men in all parts of our society, that we have reached the equality. Unfortunately, it's not the case. And the recent report by UN Women is, I would say, giving a very realistic but a very pessimistic look, because if we go with the same speed as we've been going, we will need practically another 300 years. Just think, 300 years to reach the parity between men and women. And even in the most in the countries which have made the most progress, even them, they will not be able to reach the parity and equal participation of women and men in the society by 2030. 2030 is our agenda of sustainable development goals. So in spite of quite often very positive pictures taking place here in the United Nations, we have to remember that the situation is not the same in other parts of the world. And we really have to talk about the role women can play in society, in politics, in disarmament, in security, in everywhere. And all the studies we have confirm that having equal participation of women in the society is important not only for the women. It's important for the society as such. It's important for men as well. And that's a very important topic we have to talk. We know that when women participate equally in the economic activities, when they are able to earn decent salaries, their families can spend more money on nutrition, on their children, on education. We know when women are elected members of parliaments and they reach certain presence in the parliaments really start adopting more socially oriented legislation, which really allows to provide for equal rights for children, for minorities, for people who really need it. We all know that involvement of women in negotiations provides more durable results of these negotiations. We know that all the mediation which is done by women in the conflict zone is always more durable long-term if they are participating. So it's very, very important to talk about it. Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, when he became Secretary General, made his promise that he will reach parity between men and women at top position. And he reached it. We're already 50-50 on the level of top leadership of the organization. It's not the case in governments, national governments, and many other spheres, but in the United Nations, it's done. And it confirms it can be done. If you make a decision, there are always women who can be promoted on merit, and I think that's very, very important. And it can be done pretty quickly. We in Geneva, in our office, we also have reached the parity, and we really see that this parity between men and women, is strengthening our professional capacity. We really see that we are stronger because we are more diverse, we have different points of views, and we have different angles of viewing quite often similar things. But even reaching the parity is not enough. The real struggle begins now to keep this parity. And again, Secretary General is always reminding us that, well, you have reached a certain parity, but now you have to fight for keeping this parity. And that's a very important thing, because we all have to show that when you have an equal participation of men and women in leadership, it's effective leadership, it's progressive leadership, it brings necessary changes. This year we're celebrating 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. That's the document which is mostly translated in all other languages. And that's the document which really gives us universal rights. So we're very happy to welcome you here in the Palais, in the process of renovation, in the process of talking about Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but also speaking about Sustainable Development Goals. And you know that there are 17 Sustainable Development Goals. All of them are absolutely important. But if I am asked to name the goal which is giving the best multiplication effort, that's the goal about equal participation of women. It's about equal rights for women, because participation of women in all parts of the societies are really giving immense results. And I really hope that we will not have to wait another 300 years. So this event you are having here, I really hope will allow us to minimize the waiting time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you so much, not only for your accomplishment, but also for hosting us here in your beautiful palais. And thank you for all the things you mentioned also. And we will keep on going to make sure that SDG 5 can be a multiplier. And I love how you said that if it can be possible in one place, it can also be possible somewhere else. So thank you. I know you're with me.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Right. Okay. So, thank you. So before we go on, I just wanted to remind all of us about a few things. So in this room, you cannot bring any food or any drinks. So with the exception of water in the cans or on the glass bottle. So no food, no coffee. If you need that, you go outside and we leave it outside. So that's one thing. And we keep our phone off, flight mode or on silent. And third, but not, and it's to use the headset. And what else should we remember? I think that is about it. Yeah, and there is no interpretation here today also. So with that, I'd like to now introduce Royston Flood, who is the host, or is the president of CISPOC, which is our host for Global Citizen Forum and for WIN in this building. Dr. Flood is a polymath, a man of many interests, studies, and abilities. He's passionate, though, about finding self-sustaining solutions and to integrate health, education, and enterprise. And Dr. Flood, thank you so much for this magnificent collaboration of enabling us to be here with us. And the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to share a quick video from Davos that might just sort of set the scene with some talented women. If we could run the video, yeah.
Hello and welcome to this special episode of Mission Makers, brought to you from Davos, Switzerland, where I was lucky enough to be moderating a week of panels in the mountains at the Land Space Summit, which took place during the World Economic Forum earlier this year. It was a huge project, and I spent close to a year curating the program for the summit, which was a gathering to collaborate on the most pressing issues of our current and future generations, converging the frontiers of technology and humanity to showcase the cultural essence of life in an immersive, elevated experience. We had some incredible speakers at our summit, from Deepak Chopra to the first African woman to pilot a spacecraft, Dr. Sian Proctor, and many other visionaries and thought leaders. I'll be sharing a few highlights from our panel discussions over the next few weeks, so stay tuned and let's dive straight into today's episode. Cultural leadership in times of crisis.
Today's theme is all about creativity and the spiritual codes of success. And I'm lucky to be joined by three incredible leaders who are really operating in that space and spearheading change. And today's discussion is really about cultural leadership in times of crisis. Obviously, we've all been through the last 2 years and the way that leadership has been catapulted to the forefront in terms of how it's bound together the teams, the families, all the different people that we sort of surround ourselves with. So if leadership is weak, then of course everything is going to disintegrate around it. So very important for us to have this discussion around cultural leadership. What does it mean? How does it influence yourselves, but also the teams around you? How do you empower other people? And so to my right, I have Alessa Berg from Top Tier Impact, Samira Khan from Microsoft, and Dr. Royston Flood from C-SPOC. So it'd be amazing if you could all introduce yourselves and tell us what you're doing, starting with Alessa.
All right, I'll go ahead. So my name is Alessa Berg. I run a company called Top Tier Impact. And today and overall at Davos, we have many TTI members, TTI ambassadors here in the audience as well. So Top Tier Impact is a global ecosystem focused on impact investing and sustainability. Our mission is really to accelerate the adoption of impact as a paradigm of investing, running companies, and frankly, just showing up as people, right? Showing up with certain values at the core of how we transact and how we create value. So we have a global network, we have an investment-focused unit, and a consulting business as well in the climate space. We'll get to more later.
This is Samira Khan. I was most recently a part of the AI and sustainability market development team with Microsoft US. Soon to be switching roles. Prior to that was at Salesforce, working on social impact, both internally as well as on the product side and externally as well.
Okay, are we on? Oh, interesting. Yes, I'm the president of C-SPOC, which is the United Nations accredited NGO out of Geneva. We focus on developing self-sustaining solutions. And we find that by linking health, education, and enterprise together, while celebrating diversity and inclusion, we can achieve things that other change programs don't. We had a conference on Monday at the United Nations in Geneva, which was focused on women inspiring a peaceful and sustainable future. And there were more than 200 women in a community of women mostly, but a few men. And we had a delegation from the Ukraine as well. So I believe that it's actually women who actually are critical in these times of change. And it's also a time when we can all learn. So I said, well, I'm here to listen. And that's probably the same today.
Well, you're surrounded by two amazing women, divine feminine energy. And, you know, it's important for us, I think, to strip it back to the beginning. Let's go back to the core, the foundation. What does leadership mean to each one of you? And how does your culture influence your personal leadership style? So Royston, let's go the other way around.
Well, I was born in London in Guy's Hospital, and then I've lived all over the world. So I'm not just a one culture person. I believe in celebrating all cultures. I believe you have an opportunity to understand how people have got to where they are. And every culture has a sort of like a zeitgeist. I think for me, the discovery is that it's cooperation that is key. It's actually celebrating people I believe also in Jack Ma's philosophy is try and get people that are more intelligent than you. I'm a dyslexic polymath, so I have one or two ups and downs in life. In Switzerland, I usually have a few challenges with the administration forms, but we're trying to develop a sense of humor between us. So leadership for me is about inspiring people rather than telling them. It's about emotional and spiritual intelligence rather than mental, physical. And it's about allowing people to be their best. It's about celebrating competence rather than trying to recognize incompetence. And I find that humor is an incredibly important lubricant of life. We have, at least I get many humorous situations, as you can imagine. But if you can have humor, it diffuses negativity. It creates an opportunity for people to be together and work together.
No, I completely agree. I also come from a background in motorsports, as many of you may know. And when we look at a team like Mercedes, one of the reasons they've been so successful is the no blame culture. Because once you start pointing those fingers and alienating people and making them feel inferior, you can't really support and nurture that innovation and that unity and that bond in the team. Of course, everybody has to be accountable, but doing it like that is perhaps not the right
joy and fun.
Exactly.
So we are where we are. We live in an incredibly complicated world of natural and complex disasters. I think, as the DG said, we've applied multilateralism, but I think there's a new beginning around multiculturalism, where we respect where people have come from. We understand that many groups have been around for thousands of years, yet we imagine that they're not. We have to begin to celebrate all the philosophies of life, all the ways of looking at change. And I think fundamental in all that is women. But what I see around me is this paradigm of fear. I see fear and mindsets that lock people into stagnation. They lock people into unbelievably stupid behaviors. I think the way of trying to get in a deal with mindsets is you get to the mind through the heart. So that's really about talking about emotional intelligence leading to mental and spiritual intelligence. I think women are always on the edge of chaos. You know, I was chair of the Rotarian Disaster Agency, where you have 100,000 people, say, in a disaster. The guys all push off and leave the women to sort it out. And they are incredibly powerful. They're the ones that actually make change happen at the grassroots. And I think 80%, if you're on the edge of chaos, which you probably describe where we are now, 80% of the outcomes are a function of people. They're not of systems. We need to move away from systems being more important than people. And the fact that people are often undervalued, they're not heard, abusive episodes, and what we think is now the latest frontier is institutional harassment, where organizations that are big do terrible things to people that are unable to help. And that's a really big challenge that CSPOC is trying to deal with. We need to move away from this learned helplessness that comes from fear. The problem is, as you start to approach learned helplessness, people get into distraction behaviors. And if you try and solve one distraction, they just go on to another. We need to actually build self-worth. We need to develop the light inside. So people move towards a notion of positive self-worth and learned optimism that comes from hope. And I would ask you that also comes from loving kindness to themselves, to the planet, to the people around them. Once you start creating a resonance field of loving kindness, it's amazing what happens. You see the sparkle in the eyes of children and a few adults as well. And I think we all need to be able to have hope to live our dream. You know, we all, when we come down to it, have a dream and we'd like to fulfill that dream, but the problems of stress and anxiety get in the way. And I come back to what I was saying there. Joy and fun is the answer. A friend of mine had a factory in Japan that was completely wiped out with a tsunami. But because his motto was joy and fun, the people came together and rebuilt the factory in 6 months. You can do the impossible with that notion of joy and fun. So bring joy and fun into organizations. I always look and see whether there's any humor in an organization when I go to visit. And then we come to this interesting challenge of women. So I would say that I'm a gifted amateur in this area. I start from the premise that I think we have both masculine and feminine qualities. And I think we need to try and understand the balance. We did some studies some time ago to see what motivated men and what motivated women. Happy to have a few chip-ins here, but we found that men were typically motivated by status, pleasure, and interestingly, a safe home to come back to, you know, out fighting the dragons, but they need the cave. And women were motivated by very much more about participation and trust. For them, it was important to have a safe environment, to have a dream. So if you're going to allow anybody to run a community, I think you probably let the women do it because it's more likely to be safer. I think, as the DG said, I mean, it's all right having 50% participation, but there's still the dark shadows of the glass ceiling where you actually have to get there, and then you have to work really hard to maintain that role, and the sticky floor where a lot of women won't actually apply for jobs because they don't think they're competent, whereas the guys will actually do it even if they're not competent. And then we come to this notion of pioneering. So what's pioneering? Well, I'm a member of the Explorers Club, which Marcelo is also, I think, around somewhere. He's the head of the chapter in Switzerland. I think I was let in because I told good jokes, nothing to do with climbing mountains. But what do pioneers have? They have vision. They have a dream, first of all. They have this dream of doing the impossible. Christian is one of the most incredible pioneers I've ever met. And I'll say a couple of words. So pioneers have vision to climb a mountain, but it's a good plan if you take some ropes. So you have to develop competence. You have to be competent pioneers. It takes an enormous amount of courage to deal with uncertainty, and you need this resilience to climb out of pits. As a dyslexic, I fall down any pit that happens to be around, so my only skill is climbing out of pits. And then we come to this interesting challenge of global harmony. What does that mean? Well, when I look at the world, I see you have to find change processes that start at the grassroots. And women are the power base at the grassroots, the power base in the family. We just need to give them a chance. And what we've more recently discovered is grandmothers are formidable, yeah? You know, the Hopi Indians said, once you enable the grandmothers, you'll have peace on the planet. So we need to elevate the support for women's voices and the leadership of women, where they're not just seen as another voice on the block, they're seen as something which is fundamental to making change happen. Again, we need to prioritize human rights, equality, and environmental responsibility so that we are part of a self-sustaining solution. And SDG goal number 5, and to create a more just, peaceful, and sustainable world where we can all survive. Nobody wants a nuclear holocaust. Everybody loses. But we are on the brink of madness at the moment, so I really do hope we find a solution quickly. So that's my initial thoughts. I'm going to hand over to Christine, who knows more about what she's talking about. Oh, one last phrase. I think loving kindness means we can win together, which is the entree for Christine. I should say a couple of words about Christine. Christine comes from a small Norwegian fishing village called Kristiansand, and she's fought her way up through the class structure in Norway. There's a class structure in Norway right the way through to establishing WIN more than 25 years ago, which was an enormous step of courage. So there's more than now 25,000 women leaders, but it has to continually be reinvented, and it can only be reinvented with your help. She has extraordinary leadership skills. She brings inspiration to everybody she works with. So I think we should support her in every way we can. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you so much. And I would like to start by saying that this meeting here today didn't happen on its own. And it happened with great collaboration with Global Citizen Forum and its members. It happens with great collaboration with CSPOC and its members. It happens with great collaboration with WIN and the team. But it also happened because all of you are here today and that you made that extra effort of taking a day out of your ordinary life to make this a little of an extraordinary day. And this aspect of extra effort is needed to create something different. Nothing happens if we just do the same or the ordinary. We need to do the extraordinary. And today we are talking about pioneers. And Royston mentioned we need vision also. And I know all of you here are so filled with the desire to contribute for the common good. And many of you are doing that. And we're using the word pioneers instead of leaders because we know we are at a time where we need to actually also invent and come up with something really new. It could be that you are the first person in your family to move to another country, the first person to talk in a different way, the first person to take on a leadership role, or the first person to both be a mother and work, the first person to start a new venture. The first can be so many different things. It can simply be talking up or being interested in current affairs in a family where that was not normal. So I started many, many years ago working with women, and I know several of you in the room are also on that path for many years. And we may wonder, why does it take so long time? And we know that we have reached far in many places. Even in this house, we heard today that we have reached to quite an equal place. And we need to stay vigilant. In a number of places in the world, we see and witness and observe and feel regression. And we know also it's not only about women. It's also about that system. We can call it the patriarchy. That very system that shames boys from crying and ridicules girls from laughing. That's what we want to free ourselves from. And it needs us pioneering new ways in the world, in our society, in our companies, but also within ourselves. This work is outside in the world, and we know it needs to be done also inside of us. So we are standing together here today, and I count on you and how we will be together. And as always, I ask each and every one of you to be extraordinary, open. Make an extra effort in your own observation of what's happening. Catch yourself if you're judging another, because this is what we have to work with. How can we be inclusive in a diverse society, diverse workplace, in a diverse even you, with many different aspects of ourselves? So be very open. Spend more time on listening. As Dr. Flood said also, too few people are heard, seen, observed, even felt. There are many ways we can be with another. So that's important. Be quick to connect. So afterwards, we'll do little group works also and connect. Reach out to somebody different than you already know. Be quick to contribute. Share something about your passion. You know, not only a standard what you do, but share more of yourself, give of yourself, and also never accept unacceptable behavior. We train ourselves in setting boundaries. That's too many women have experienced abuse. Too few have had the chance to not only set boundaries, but also get the help needed in order to solve that. And commit. If you make a commitment to somebody, you commit to it. We don't want to be superficial. We are deep, we are real. And this is how we stay together. And then we can expect lots of magic and miracles happening here to us. And with that, I would like to officially then welcome all of you. And again, also Dr. Modi, who is going to be here, he will be coming on a little bit later. He couldn't come in person, but he's with us on the screen in a short little moment. So I welcome you, and we will have a little exercise as we are changing the things. Can we have a slide, please? So what we would like you to do now is to talk to the person sitting in front of you or next to you, a group of 2, 3, up to 4 people, but not more, because then the time goes over. So what we would like to do now over the next couple of minutes is to share, get a little acquainted who you are, what you do, and something you are passionate about. And then you could share an intention for the day, or you think about that on your own. Off we go. Thank you.
Brilliant. We're on time.
Yeah, almost. We needed her.
turn on the light. When the light is on, you are on, and then. When you're the third person. Yeah, and then you're the third person.
We need to get going. Okay, can I get all the speakers to come on? Nobody hears anything. Oh, this microphone is impossible. Yeah, immediately. First to come up, please. There you are. Anush. Oh. But I introduced one. We need to get going again. So for those of you that just entered the room, remember to put on your ear set so you hear. Okay, and again, no food, no drinks, no coffee at least. I mean, you can have water in this room, and telephone off, so you know that. Okay, so we are about to start our another segment of this amazing day we have in front of us and already experiencing right now, right here. And this session, we are calling it A World in Transformation. So we are living in a world with a lot of happenings, with a lot of acceleration of change, from technology to the economy, to many conflicts, to movement of people. There's a lot of changes, and some of them are not only good, and some are also good. So we want to highlight also the good ones and see how we can expand that. And I've invited some amazing individuals here that are experts both in trade, in sustainability, in inclusion, in technology, to share some of the forces they see in the world right now and why they are important, and also how they impact on women. So let's start our talk by introducing Anush Derborgasian. She's head of the World Trade Organization's gender unit. And she's been working at the WTO, the World Trade Organization, for more than 16 years. And she was the first trade and gender expert in the organization. I know she's also, besides her expertise, leading a team of people doing research on women in trade. And this is really, really important, because we want to know what is happening and what this can bring to us. So, and we also know that the Director General of the World Trade Organization has adopted several of her policies. She has a background from France and Scotland and holds a master in European and international law and one in communication. Anoush, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Christine, for this great introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is a great privilege to be here today at the UN with you. We live in a mutating world. Social classes are shifting like tectonic plates in every country, reshaping societies. The middle class is slowly being erased, becoming either poorer or richer, making us live in societies that are more and more binary. Either you are in or out, or either you have or have not. Interestingly, however, people themselves feel less binary. We also live in a world of digital mutation, building on the transformations made by new technologies and the internet since the 90s. Our planet is mutating, as human beings have been fashioning it to their needs for centuries. In fact, our planet is not mutating. It is slowly depleting. Human beings are also mutating. They have been for the last 2 centuries. We are all interconnected. Our societies, economies, culture, histories, for good or for bad, are interlinked. We are globalized beings. Even our health, well-being, and mobility is globalized, as revealed by the COVID-19 pandemic. Even our food is globalized, looking at the consequences of the current war in Europe. These mutations allow for crisis to spring. And one crisis feeds on another one, and it's a never-ending cycle. Actually, I'm realizing that I'm painting a very gloomy picture, but positive change can happen. And the most tragic trend that would or should be shaping our world today, and these topics, for the better, is gender equality. Because women are agents of positive change. They are at the core of economies, societies, communities, families, and history making. They are at the core of multilateral issues and the many current global crises. Why are they these agents? Well, women are entrepreneurs and traders. There is 500 million women that are involved in in entrepreneurial activities today. They support the productive capacity of countries. They also are job creators, especially for other women. And so they contribute to poverty reduction. Women are also innovators. Did you know that about 30% of women entrepreneurs globally offer innovative products? Did you also know that firms that have female chief technology officers are more innovative than firms with male technology officers? Women are drivers of economic diversification. They tend to be more involved in the services sector. Some countries are actually including women's economic empowerment at the center of their new economic diversification strategies. Women are climate change mitigators. In developing countries, they are natural resources managers. Through this role, women have become experts in maintaining biodiversity on land and at sea by developing eco-friendly techniques. They are actually circular economists. Women are healthcare givers and workers, as clearly revealed by the COVID-19 pandemic, and their unpaid healthcare contribution annually to the global economy amounts to $1.5 trillion. Women are also agents of food security. As cross-border traders in essential food products, they play a key role in supporting food security, nutritious diets, and therefore people's health. Their economic contribution is also undeniable. In West Africa, for example, female informal traders in essential food represent about 30% of total trade in the region. Women are peace builders. While treaties create peace, they don't always nurture and sustain them. People do, and women are frequently at the heart of ongoing reconstruction. Women are leaders too. as the UN Director General was saying this morning. But in the WTO, women are not really leaders. Women represent about 36% of ambassadors in the WTO, and about 30% of ministers in charge of WTO affairs are female. Of course, we have a Director General who is also a woman, and she's the first woman heading the organization. So I just wanted to also highlight that. Women are also revolutionaries, as we can witness today, and not to destroy it, but to build new open societies, and they are in fact reformers. All these roles bring women back to trade that can strengthen them economically, financially, and also socially. This is what the WTO has engaged to do 6 years ago, making trade work for women. Since 2016, the WTO has evolved from a gender-blind organization to a gender-responsive one. In 2020, the WTO has institutionalized gender issues with the establishment of the Informal Working Group on Trade and Gender. And in 2022, WTO members multilaterally recognized the importance of women's economic empowerment and the WTO's work on trade and gender. But above all, today, I see two important shifts happening in trade policy. The first one, many countries now estimate that gender equality directly supports their trade expansion and their integration in trade markets. They believe that gender issues should be an integral part of their trade policies and strategies, and that investing in women, in women's productive potential is essential to enhancing their trade performance. In fact, trade and gender equality are seen now as two key components of economic development going hand in hand. Since 2019, supporting this trend and with the aim of promoting gender-responsive trade policymaking, the WTO developed a training program for government officials to build their capacity in integrating gender issues in their trade policies. And we also have developed a set of policy tools on trade and gender. Also, with the same objective, in May 2021, the WTO launched the WTO Gender Research Hub, a network of trade and gender researchers from academia, international and regional organizations. One of the hub's goals is to connect researchers and policymakers as they can mutually support each other's work on gender. And I see we have one member of the hub here today. Hi, Sanas. Following this purpose, on December 2022, the WTO organized the World Trade Congress on Gender, the first research conference on trade and gender organized internationally. In March this year, the Hub has adopted its work program 2023-2024. And in November this year, we will be organizing the Youth Trade Summit on Gender to build the next generation of experts on trade and gender. Lastly, in 2021 and 2022, the WTO reformed its Aid for Trade monitoring and evaluation exercise to better integrate gender consideration into its data collection processes. And the WTO has developed a gender-relevant set of indicators to support governments in integrating gender into their Aid for Trade programs. So that's for the first shift and the response to the first shift. The second shift is also happening inside the WTO, with the institutionalization of gender in the organization. And given the cross-cutting nature of the issue, actually WTO members are starting to talk about social issues which were actually considered and still considered as being outside of the WTO mandate. I have spoken about our mutating world and that crises are shaping it. Crises, whether financial, climate, or health-related, are not gender neutral. And our current world is treating women worse than men because no matter the crisis, they are impacting women the most. Sometimes that needs to be taken into consideration when designing policies and trade policies. And I believe that trade can support women in crafting a way out of crisis. To conclude, I would like to say that all these changes mean that they need to be resilient. All these changes mean that leaders and pioneers need to be more resilient in their actions and work for long-term impact. Also, they cannot do it alone. They need partners in all fields of action, at all levels. And this is why the WTO is partnering with other organizations, private sector, academia. As I was preparing for this event, I was asked to outline my dream or my hope for the future. And actually, I don't dream. I do. That's my only humble hope, that my action or my actions benefit women around the world and make trade work for them. And as John Fitzgerald Kennedy said, there are risks and costs to action, but they are far less than the long-range risks of comfortable inaction. And impact comes from action. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anoush, for enlightening us with that talk, and also to give some of the numbers. It's very interesting to hear how women are the creators, the innovators, the entrepreneurs, and the peacemakers, and the revolutionaries. I like all those words. And also how we need to build a resilience and support each other. We can't do it alone. And through action and through action together, we can get there. Thank you so much. And let's collaborate with her so that we are even more in doing that partnerships. Yeah. Our next speaker is Chantaline Carpentier, and she is Canadian and the Chief Trade, Environmental, Climate Change and Sustainable Development branch of UNCTAD's Division on International Trade and Commodities. She's the chief of the trade, and she strives to advance the new economies and new economic models, and also partnerships to make them more resilient, more inclusive, and digitally connected and sustainable economies, especially for girls, women, and small and medium-sized enterprises. I'll let you get the floor and continue sharing your experience. Thank you.
Such a pleasure. I actually moved to Geneva last week. So perfect timing. It was not just for this, but I'm happy to be here. So I think Anoush has already, in the previous panel with Christine, you already mentioned the cascading crisis that we're facing. So let's start with the negative and we'll go to the positive. So the COVID-19, war in Ukraine, the triple environmental crisis have severe impact on geopolitics. And we've moved from a world that was much more north-south divided to also being east-west divided, i.e., if you want to put in big picture, the NATO countries and the non-NATO countries. And that is disrupting supply chains, foreign policies, and trade and investment flows. And it's shaking an already fragile multilateral trading system, which our sister here, Anoush, is part of. This is impacting the smaller countries and the most vulnerable country, those with less influence. Because that's what the multilateral trading system is good for, is to protect the small and those without much power. And there's another big impact that we need to be aware of, which is the rapid digitalization of the economy. E-commerce has been accelerated through the pandemic, and the health crisis. And so what we're seeing is that is leaving the unconnected behind, and the low-skilled workers, and this is accelerating. The digital data-oriented, the digital data, just to make sure we're on the same page, originate from our footprint of personal, social, and business activities online on the major platforms, right? And this is only accelerating now with IoT, the Internet of Things, and the e-commerce rising. So the data on us and the ability through big data and AI to use that data is just increasing exponentially. And this data intelligence can actually increase our capacity to effectively use our resources and develop more efficient policies that serve people and planet better. And this is an area that deserves all of attention, but especially women's attention. But countries that lack data privacy and protection regulation risk being cut off from international trade opportunities, as many transactions require data flow that comply with minimum legal requirement, and these are changing all the time, and they're actually, because of the changing geopolitics, are different from different parts of the world. It is also increasingly difficult to ignore the need for balanced governance surveillance requirement against data protection. Yeah. And therefore, and the way this is going to be done will be different depending on which country you're talking about. And again, a lot of partnership is necessary to achieve those policies in a balanced way. And that leads to also risk to our democracies because of misinformation and deepfake increasingly being present on social media. And what that is doing is eroding the trust amongst ourselves, across countries, across regions of the world, across sectors of the economy that needs to be addressed very quickly, because as we see a concentration of wealth in the data economy, by the way, there's pretty much 2 countries that extract a value from data, and I'll let you guess which those are. And this is contradictory, but this big data online is also offering an opportunity for like a radical transparency on how business operate, which would allow us to keep them, well, preventing them from the green washing and the SDG washing that has been pretty much propagating, and actually being able to see for citizens and investors who are the real good actors. So it goes both ways. And then final big change that we're seeing is state is back. You know, remember for the last 20, 30 years, it's basically big government was bad, remove minimum government implication in the economy. And now we're seeing that big state is back. Why? Because we saw through the pandemic, we saw through all the crises that we need the state to be present. And by the way, some of this data should have been public domain to start with. That's another big area that we have, because why should we have to rely on the goodwill of business to give us the data so we can measure the pandemic? There needs to be a reform of at some governance of the data out there. So what do we need to do to avoid these extremes is to address right out these north, south, east, west, rural, urban, white, blue collar trust deficit. So that's one of the tasks that we have. And we have few tools to do that. So we have the UN is running a Human Security for All campaign right now, and that address all of the SDGs, but at the individual level, as opposed to what some people feel like, oh, the SDGs and all these UN thing, it's like at this level, doesn't, but the UN Security for All is relevant to each individual. Technology for good, capital for good, like all these programs out there. But also we're gonna need international cooperation to help developing countries that were barely coming out of COVID-19, that have basically used a little fiscal capacity they had to maintain their population during the COVID, and now basically are highly indebted, and their currency has depreciated because of the central banks of certain countries increasing their interest rate. So therefore, and then that means their debt services is increasing as well. So they need international support to do that. And then also, Anush, you mentioned it, the realization that macroeconomic policy, or any policy for that matter, trade policy, are not gender neutral. And therefore, we need to realize that and address that up front. And I think we have a map to address these issues. I mean, the Club of Rome had actually mapped 5 big pathways to achieve the SDGs, right? So massive investment in renewable energy, massive investment in sustainable agriculture and fisheries. We basically also need to change the business model, right? They call it changing the development model. And this is where my passion is, as you mentioned, Christine. It's like we have new economics, or actually they're existing. We call them new economics because it's fancy, but really they're all existing. But they've been kind of put on the side, such as, you know, everybody talks about green economy. What a blue economy, right? If you're in a small island developing state, blue economy is much more interesting because you have more, you know, what was it? Mauritius said they have more sea area than England and France together in terms of land mass. And then you have the care economy, which is the purple economy, which, you know, if you only invest in when you want to restart your economy, you invest in the typical sectors, which is construction, right? And big infrastructure project. These create jobs for men. But we saw during the pandemic, women suffered more. So why not invest in the care economy, education, health, and that create job for women, decent job for women. Then we have the circular economy. that is also, and we have the frugal economy, we have the social solidarity economy. This is the cooperatives, the mutuals that were there before some of the structural reform that were done a few decades ago, and that are still there, create basically 10% of GDP in most countries. It's in all countries. So I'm the president of the task force, the UN task force on social solidarity economy. We just had a UN General Assembly resolution led by Spain, Chile, and Senegal, and joined by 43 other countries on social solidarity economy. Why? Because a social solidarity economy instead of maximizing one dimension of sustainable development, economics, at the expense of social and environmental, it actually advances economic and social. And if you combine that with the blue, the green, and the purple economy, then you advance the 3 dimensions of sustainable development. So these models are actually superior, and our member states are realizing that and actually voted a resolution at the UN. They didn't vote it, they agreed consensually to advance these models. We also need to stop siloing the environment and the social. By definition, we've been pushed by politicians to do that. We can't do that. I would just give you an example. I was at the NAFTA CEC. We were the Commission on Environmental Cooperation. We could not talk to the Commission on Labor Cooperation. God forbid. But we need to stack. And I'll close with this. I see my time is running out. We basically we'll see investment, trillions of investment in the SDGs and the Paris Agreement, right? We need to agree to have a moonshot where women capture at least 30% of that money. That means they have to be owning the asset in the growth sectors, such as sustainable agriculture, renewable energy, space. These are all sectors of high growth, and we will continue to have inequality if women do not own the asset in these fast growth sectors.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for highlighting some of the situation in which we are, changing geopolitics, changing democracies, the fake news, the fake data, and the real data, and how it is 2 sides of everything, basically. But also, I was thinking about, it came up also in the previous talk and also by the Director General, the importance of partnership.
Yes.
And you are mentioning here also the new economic model that puts together the green, the purple, the blue, and so on. Can you elaborate one more part of your dream, let's say, or vision for the future of the economic model that really takes into consideration the partnerships, the collaboration that's so needed in the world right now?
Yeah, so what's happening right now is most policies, for instances, like social solidarity, mutuals and cooperatives, right? Most of the time, in most countries, they're not allowed to bid for the procurement policies. So simple changes, right? Because of their constitution. When we go and develop a decentralized renewable grid in developing countries, or any country for that matter, the first question to ask is who should own and who should be the main partners? You're going to have partners from probably development banks, from local NGOs and communities. Make sure you involve the local cooperatives of women, because then they're going to be at the table. Indigenous peoples, right? They need to be at the table. And then the financial sector, they will be the one financing. We tend to develop our project and then we bring it to them and say, please finance this. But that's not the way it works. They need to be at the table from the get-go when they develop the project, so they're own it, and it's going to be, they can develop the instrument with you that will serve these various. It's no longer you go to the World Bank, you get 200 million, you build a coal-fired plant. You have all these actors, and we need to learn to work with all these actors, because it's going to be more decentralized, and it's going to be more messy, but it's going to be much better for people, planet, and economics.
Excellent. So thank you so much. So now, since we need to operate in different worlds in so many ways, I am so proud to introduce Hajar El Hado. She's the Senior Director of NTT Data, and also she sits on several boards. She's been working more than 18 years in the IT industry. And the floor is yours, Hajar. Please let us know a little bit what's happening in technology.
Yeah, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I hope it works. You can. It's not working. It's good. Excellent. So now it's clear. Excellent. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your engagement with us, and I'm happy to be here. Pleasure, and also to give and grow and to share with you some thoughts about global drivers, technology, challenges, but also what technology is a hype, is a hope, or is hell. So if you can please sharing some, the next slide. As shared before also from the previous speakers, the global drivers for technology are really crucial and important, and specifically after COVID. So we have a storm of disruption accelerating the digital transformation. We have also the supply chain issue where we need more resilience, and we need also to initiate it and to refocus on the supply chain. We do have also this digital business transformation inside companies, but also organizations when it started from the strategy to process to people and how they're stepping in. Cybersecurity and risk is a key major global driver for all technology, actually. And again, the ecosystem that have been shared also before, green, blue, etc., the financial, the investment, the whole ecosystem around driving enterprise value. And we share also with you the main 10 strategic key megatrend or strategic prediction for 2023. Digital immune. We are talking a lot about cybersecurity, risk, etc. But what we are working on actually in the digital or the IT sector is how we can be digital immune by putting software and others key technology together to avoid the risk of security. The other main strategic prediction is metaverse. I think a lot of you heard about it, yes. And it's one of the key major strategic prediction and technology actually playing in the workplace, playing in the gaming, in different area that I will share with you afterward. And the risk also in the sustainability technology, sustainable technology, which is actually the most highest investment from CIO, and also will be a metrics for them. So this is a good news, not sharing only bad news. And also how we enter to the super apps era. There is a high spend actually on super apps in the APAC region, but it's also going globally and rollouting also globally. Again, the citizen denial and service attack, which is mainly secure by design in all the technologies that we are, that I'm sharing with you. You can go to the slide after, sorry. Ownership has been also raised, ownership of data. Where are my data? How to really shift this to user ownership. And this is also something that is key actually to growth. Also the moonshot, I think with Elon Musk, we are saying that the investment is very high, and to be disruptive, companies and organizations need to invest in this, and they are doubling the investment in the next few years until 2025. Wireless become also a multi-technology, working with the technology company. We are rollouting wireless globally due to this globalization, but also the ecosystem and also the evolution towards the AI, which has been also raised before. And go to the next slide, please. Yeah, and now how the roadmap looks like in different action and strategic technology. And one of them is to create secure foundation, how to maximize also value from technology and not just secure them for the enterprise organization, and how to attract also and retain talent. Because if we talk technology, we talk also talent. And it's really a war of talent worldwide, not just in Switzerland or in Europe. And this is something that is also need action from our side. How to grow the revenue. We are facing also many of the enterprises that want to grow the revenue, but lower the cost. To deal with this balance is important, and also to accelerate the digital transformation in organization and also politically and economically. And here you see also the roadmap. What is now is the sustainable technology. And Next is the wireless value realization, but also industry cloud platform. We are saying that, showing that many of the companies are migrating to cloud platforms to be also more secure, more immune. And then super apps, platform engineering, and also digital immune system. Last but not least, metaverse, applied observability, and adaptive AI is the roadmap in 2 to 3 years. Can move to the next slide, please. Yeah, metaverse, I think, is something that is really pumping, and I want to give you a fully or small image about what is going on actually on the metaverse and how this real-world application can apply on use cases. If you can move to the next slide, please. So, as mentioned before, there's different area where metaverse is applying and where there is a high investment in digital human, in gaming, virtual space, shared experience, and special computing, and tokenized assets as the NFT. I was recently in Silicon Valley, and this is something that needs a sense of urgency. Plug-in is one of the biggest lab for investment and technology. And I went there, and they are creating a gym, a metaverse gym, where you are fully immersed in, but it's done by men for men. More critical, the investors in Plug-in, all the investors are 98% men, only 2 women in the board. So that shows us what comes in the future and what comes in technology, and that needs also 300 years, as mentioned before, to move on. So we need to act really now. Another point is also the collaborative scape. If we can move to the next slide, please. Here is, I give you just a picture about what is metaverse. Stage 1 is we are working together in physical world. Stage 2, what is actually ongoing after COVID, is really the virtual world. And stage 3 is a fully immersed world. And it is, the investment is highly in the workplace, in collaborative, in training, but also in the gaming. If you have children, you must hear from Roblox. Yes. Again, very critical in terms of security, but also in terms of social distance and gap, because actually they are building kind of virtual community depending on your spending. And depending on your spending, you are accorded to the rich community, to the middle side, or to the low society. And this creates also a society gap in the virtual world. So an action in terms of governance, but also in terms of security is needed, and the social gap. Can move to the next slide, please. Here are some concrete use cases about metaverse. So Siemens started already the first industrial metaverse, where client can already connect with the industry, with the investor in a fully immersive world. I was in Barcelona, and their Autonomous, which is a NEOM company for Saudi Arabia, and they started already the whole virtual with the architect in US, with the people in Saudi Arabia and the Middle East, in APAC region, together in immersive workplace where they can build the architecture, the design, and everything around the project. So which is really great. Creating also the first metaverse bank, Onyx, and also you can touch and feel services and foods with one rare use case. Okay, so we can move. Sustainable technology is more critical than ever. The reason why is it touch 3 main topics. The first one is the tech for sustainability. The second one is how we enable customer sustainability. And the third one is the sustainable IT for environment, social, and governance technology. I will move to the last slide, the healthcare. Due to the timing, I think I will close with one of the most important topic is the healthcare. It's before the last one. State of IT services, and this is really a crucial topic where we are very critical in terms of digital, but also very critical in terms of digital trials. We had a lot of cases where women have not been treated or non-accumulable disease. And this is something also done by men for men. And we need also to highly put this in consideration in terms of technology, because everything around health is digitalized now. And for the future, we need to ensure that women are involved in the life science, in healthcare, but also in the clinical trials. And my dream, if we can go to the next slide, is really to increase the pipeline, and the lack of gender equality in science needs to be really addressed, because if women are not healthy, we cannot discuss diversity and inclusion.
True.
Thank you.
So thank you, Harjad, for mentioning this gender perspective. And considering that this technological advancement goes so fast and is so impactful, and the gender imbalance, what more can we do sitting here today? What can we each do to actually assure more women are programming that, so that all these products have a gender perspective?
Absolutely. I think it started from school.
School.
Yeah, university, role models, not talking about it, but really taking action. In terms of also, I'm working in an environment which is really critical, the IT. I'm the only woman in the board. But what I do is really to bring more women on board, and women supporting women, but having also sponsored by men is action that we can take. Digital field is really important in different sectors, touching different industries, and we need to ensure also that women in STEM are there to lead and to drive the future.
Thank you. Thank you so much for all the work you're doing to advance the women and in that field. Our next speaker is Dr. Anthony Giannoumis, and he is the chair of the board of Inclusive Creation. And he's the creator of a special game that's called the Inclusion Game, and the mind behind the 4 fundamental principles of universal design. He's also he's a student and a researcher of diversity and inclusion of a lifetime, and he's the author of more than 50 scientific articles on inclusive leadership, and he's the former leader of the Equals EU network for gender inclusive innovation, representing more than 24 countries. He's also, and this is interesting, I think, has received over 11 million euro worth of research and innovation grants. And as you can imagine, he says, he was the last picked for the gym class. Tell us more. The floor is yours.
Absolutely. Let's actually do a round of applause for you guys for being here. You are amazing. So I have a bit of a confession to make. I've been a professor for over 10 years. I've taught nearly 3,000 students, but I am a terrible teacher. And I discovered this recently when one of my students came marching down to the front of the auditorium, and she had a list of all the things I had done wrong during that lecture that day. What I didn't realize is that she wasn't just giving me an opportunity to be a better teacher. She was giving me an opportunity to be a more inclusive leader. Now, I know a lot of us believe that inclusion is the #1 priority in the future. And I know a lot of us agree that it takes more than talk to put inclusion into practice. And I know a lot of us would also say that inclusive leaders are catalysts for moving this issue forward. What I think a lot of us might miss are those little moments, those quiet moments that your path branches and you have to choose which road to take. Now, inclusive leadership helps us minimize the risk that we will miss the targets for the Sustainable Development Goals. It helps us maintain engagement of our most talented employees. And inclusive leadership also helps us expand to reach more users, more customers, more of our beneficiaries. I'm sure a lot of you might be thinking, Anthony, that all sounds great, but it also sounds like a hell of a lot of work. And you're not wrong. Inclusive leadership is a journey. It's not a checkbox. And what we have to do is find ways of beginning that journey and continuing to nurture each other and ourselves on that journey. I'm going to walk you through one of my wins, my lovely wins for inclusive leadership. It goes back to that story of that student, Katie. Katie is an amazing student. But when she was sitting in my office that day, I was tapping my pen on my leg with some frustration and a little bit of anger at her to have the audacity to call me out, her professor, on not doing a good enough job. And I was in a bit of a stupor. So the only thing that snapped me out was the sound of the tram outside my office window honking at a passenger. And I look at Katie and I realize this is not a student. This is a revolutionary. This is someone who sees it as their mission to call out truth to power. And she sees it as her mission because she doesn't see any other option available to her. Now, I don't know in your country, but in the United States where I'm from, most students call their teachers professor or doctor, so Dr. Anthony, Professor Anthony. In Norway, our students call our teachers by the first name. So when she said, Anthony, you can do better, it hurt. It hurt especially hard. And of course, I'm sitting there and I'm heavily invested in my authority as a professor. I've been in school forever. And so it's part of my identity. It's part of how I see myself. And it felt like she was attacking that identity. Now, have you ever had a young person call you out on something? Have you ever had a young person tell you a hard truth? Raise your hand if you've had a, yes, a lot of us have. And that's exactly what Randy was doing. And it hurt, not so much because she was calling me out, but because everything she said was spot on. And I didn't want to admit it. Not only did I not want to admit it, I didn't even fully understand why what she was telling me was right. I didn't understand the full depth of her experience. So she was there teaching me how to be a better teacher. Now, I felt really small in that moment, almost insignificant as this guy who bought up Twitter, that level of insignificance. And I'm looking at her and I'm realizing that this isn't a student. This is Captain Marvel. Do you know this movie? Captain Marvel is a woman with superpowers, and her mentor tries to control and constrain her, and eventually she breaks free from those bonds. And I realize that I have a choice now. I can try to put her down, belittle her, put her in her place, or I could shut up and listen and try to understand where she was coming from. Now, Katie made a fatal mistake that day. Professors like to have things just so. And so I have a wipe-off board in my office, big wipe-off board where I doodle all my ideas and thoughts. And I have 3 markers in that tray below my wipe-off board. I have a black marker that is used only for text. I have a blue marker that's used only for diagrams, and a red marker that is infrequently used to make corrections. Now, Katie made that fatal mistake. She picked up the red marker to draw a diagram on my wipe-off board. So clearly she had no leg to stand on. She had no authority in this discussion. It's the equivalent of having an argument online in the comment field and misspelling a word. And then the person after that goes, oh, you just don't know what you're talking about. You can't even spell correctly. The lesson I learned that day is that if I'm going to be a more inclusive leader, I'm going to need to shut up. And it's not just about shutting up. It's about shutting up so that the other person doesn't shut down. If I had tried to talk over Katie, if I had tried to flex my authority and tell her, you're just a student, you don't know what it is to be a professor, if I had not acknowledged or invalidated her experience, not only would it create a rift and really just split us apart, never to kind of connect again, it would have done nothing for me. All it would have done is give me a little bit of ego boost for a few minutes, and then later on that day it would be completely gone. there would be no value there created. So the lesson I want you to come away with is that for people like me who are in positions of power and authority, it's necessary for us to shut up so that the other person doesn't shut down. Thank you. I want to leave you with a good end to this story. Katie and I went on to work together, and this Equals EU project that Kristen mentioned before is our project. We collaborated on the proposal, we submitted it to the EU, and we won 1.7 million euro to promote gender-inclusive innovation in 24 countries. That would not have been possible if I had put her in her place, if I had not shut up. Thank you. I want to teach you a little magic trick. So there is a sign language gesture for shut up. And I want you to promise me you'll teach your bosses, your supervisors, the people who are in those positions of authority, this gesture. It's very simple. It's an open hand. Let's do it together. Open hand. And enclose next to your mouth. Okay? So I teach my team this so that when I'm looking around during a meeting and everybody's looking at me like this, I know it's time for me to shut up so that they don't shut down. Okay? So what are you going to do whenever you see someone like me who's hogging up all the space in a discussion? What are you going to do?
Thank you so much, Anthony. I'm Norwegian. For your amazing talk and of openly sharing that story and how it feels like to be called out the truth to power and shut up in order to not shut down another. So very any dreams you want to share? Hope for the future?
Dreams, I hope that people who, like me, who are in positions of power and authority will make a greater effort to decenter themselves, to create space for others, and recenter focus and attention on those individuals who aren't underrepresented, they're over-excluded. And this is a quote by a colleague of mine, Shani Danda. She says, it's not that we're underrepresented, it's that we're overly excluded. And I think that's just a brilliant, brilliant way of putting it.
Thank you so much. We will continue now. We are going to go into segment 2, but I ask you all to be seated, actually, as we call Dr. Modi online. Yeah. So we will let's start by introducing Chatzia, who will speak first. Anyway, So yeah, our next speaker is Chatzia Ilmi, and we are moving into a segment still about our world in transformation, but we're looking a little bit more on polarization and the wars and the problems and how and what is the way forward. Chatzia is a accidental politician, she says. She is a TV personality. She's been a renowned TV anchor on several of India's leading prestigious channels for several years. She's also the spokesperson for a Global Citizen Forum, and she's been very vocal about her opinions and various bilateral issues also. She believes in breaking stereotypes and stretching the limits of one's being. Fighting for the right of those who are suppressed is not really a choice for her, and neither is being the voice of the voiceless. I also want to mention that Chatzia was also instrumental in changing the law for many women in India through the change of the law for this divorce possibility of Muslim women. So Chatzia, I give you the floor. Please share with us.
Thank you so much. Am I audible?
Yes.
Rashri Modi ji, who's chairperson of Global Citizen Forum. Kristen, the creator of WIN, this wonderful, wonderful organization. Wonderful women pioneers, fellow collaborators. I sit here before you, this august gathering of decision makers, thought leaders, global visionaries, with the offering of the profound words of wisdom uttered many centuries ago in the Maha Upanishad, a Sanskrit text. Ayam nija paroveti gana laghu chetasam Udara Charitanam tu Vasudeva Kutumbakam, which means this is mine and that is yours, say the small-minded. The wise believe that the entire world is a family. Change is the only constant, wrote Heraclitus. Yet there are periods within the pace of and scale of change is so striking that change itself becomes a primary characteristic of the times. This may be the case today. Vasudeva Kutumbakam, which translates to one earth, one family, and one future. It is also the theme of G20 presidency, which India leads. The theme highlights the importance of all life, human, animal, plant, and microorganism, as well as their interdependence on Earth and across the universe. The theme also exemplifies life, lifestyle for environment, which looks at sustainable and responsible lifestyle choices, both at the individual, national, and international level, in creating a cleaner, greener, or a bluer future. The world indeed is in a state of transition, and in a state of flux between competing visions on how the world order needs to be reconfigured in order to achieve a strategic equilibrium in this post-pandemic world order, which can be shaped up by various plausible scenarios. Now, either we can discuss them ad nauseum, debate, spar endlessly, or we can examine and investigate the root cause of the source of conflict, to take a deep dive into the reasons of the conflict. I would like to talk about identity and its sense of belonging to oneself. And that would be, to my mind, the heart of the matter. Who am I? I'm me, of course, but I'm also you. I'm us, I'm a nation, I'm a language, a territory, an echo chamber, an idea, an ideology, a cult or a culture. Yes, I'm also a global power. The source of strife within and without, conflict, and consequently war is this fixed idea of identity. That is the identification of the self to a predefined construct. And that predefined construct is sometimes our favorite football team and sometimes a nation. You know, Eckhart Tolle talked about the philosopher Descartes. And he says the philosopher Descartes believed he had found the most fundamental truth when he made this famous statement, I think, therefore I am. He had, in fact, given expression to the most basic error, to equate thinking with being and identity with thinking. The compulsive thinker, which means almost everyone lives in a state of apparent separateness in an insanely complex world of continuous problems and conflict, a world that reflects the ever-increasing fragmentation of the mind. So why does this Indian offering of Vasudeva Kutumbakam is even more relevant today than ever before? Because this thought itself liberates us from the shackles and boundaries of who we are or who we think we are into a more expansive experience of self, of who we want to be. If we continue to be just one gender against others, my tribe against everyone else, my class subjugating others, and my nation over others, we will never be able to rise to the occasion that today beckons. To be true to ourselves, we have to shed the smallness and embrace the higher ideals of, as activists of peace, guardians of human decency, custodians of public morality, and upholders of individual dignity. The idea that India offers today is the one that is etched firmly in a civilizational ethos, that of one world, one family, one future. It is this idea alone that can offer hope for democracy, diversity, diaspora, digital inclusion, and demographic opportunities. Yes, all things are in a state of flux. The world's state of affairs has always existed in a pathological condition of possible, plausible, probable, and then actual war. Now, the core question that remains is that whether the shift in the geopolitical dynamics in this global environment will help fructify the competing views of how the world order needs to be rehauled and reconfigured to achieve a steady state of cooperation? Or will it be a terra incognito of geopolitical challenge of egos and whims of some powerful nations that will fail to tackle this horrible incubus of war? The way forward, my friends, is Buddha and not Yuddha. Buddha, we all know, Yudh in Hindi means war. And it is the Indian Prime Minister who said this at the United Nations some years ago, that it is our country that has given the world Buddh, not Yudh. Buddh as opposed to Yudh. Modi emphasized that only by taking into account the countries that are experiencing resource shortages can we create a better, more equitable, and a more stable world. As a result of conflict, economic stability, religious extremism, and the problem of climate change, which is causing human and animal life, species, continues to be, and that's how the species perish and glaciers melt. It is therefore important to go again and revisit Lord Buddha's teachings in modern times, stating that solutions to contemporary issues can be found through the ancient teachings of Lord Buddha. And way back it was said that, and Lord Buddha preached this, that eternal peace can be obtained by abandoning war and, yes, defeat and victory. So getting out of this entire binary of defeat and victory is and to counter enmity with enmity, rancor with rancor, hostility with hostility, conflict with conflict, and war with war. Which is why at the presidency, we talk about lifestyle for environment. At India's presidency at G20, the idea that lifestyle for environment or mission life, which is again an idea inspired by Buddha, and says that if people change their lifestyles, way of looking at things, and became more conscientious, the enormous issue of climate change could be resolved. Consequences of war. Philosopher George Santayana said, "Only the dead have seen the end of war, for even after the bullets keep flying, civilians face enormous challenges trying to rebuild their neighborhoods, economies, their schools, and livelihoods. Trauma persists well after conflict ends." Death as a result of wars, my friends, is simply the tip of the iceberg. Other consequences besides death are not well documented, but they include endemic poverty, malnutrition, disability, economic and social decline, and psychosocial illnesses, just to mention a few. Many believe that current war has brought us precariously close to a nuclear Armageddon, and the Damocles sword hangs over human life. It's therefore important to reflect on past horrors of war. An estimated total of 70 to 85 million people have perished, or about 3% of the 2.3 billion people on Earth died in 1940. Deaths directly caused by war, including military and civilian fatalities, are estimated at 50 to 56 million, with an additional estimated 19 to 28 million deaths from war-related disease and famine. Only 1 in 5 people living in active or recent war zones have depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and other trauma-induced mental health problems. We live in a world where we pride ourselves of being bound by a political community, a controlled, civilized world without which the great political thinker, Hobbes, in his political treatise, Leviathan, warned 4 centuries ago that human life would descend to continual fear and danger of violent death, and the life of man solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. Well, we have comprehensively developed civilized societies and data-driven massive power structures now, but the life of billions of our world citizens of a much-touted global world village has never been so atrociously poor, nasty, and brutish. Our world history is witness to the 20th and 21st centuries as perhaps the most violent ever, when humanity suffered unimaginable misery, indignity, and devastation. Wars continue unabated. The devastating war right now has received billions of dollars in blank checks to continue. War is indeed being perpetuated on a diabolical chessboard. There are no winners in war, as we all know. So, what is the end game? Yes, the question that stares at the humanity, begging for an answer, remains: what is, after all, the end game? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Shazia. What is the end game? And we will now hear from and introduce Rajarshi Bhupendra Kumar Modi, the conscious capitalist, the film producer, the author, the founder of the Global Citizen Forum. He is an industrialist who's using many of his companies to build India. He has produced movies such as Oh My God and the TV series on Buddha that we are so proud to know about. And on his, he also formed the Global Citizen Forum in 2011 to go beyond gender, religion, and nationality, and hence a peacemaker. He was bestowed on his birthday on the 2nd of January the prestigious title of Rajarshi, of the highest divine figure in India, the Shankaracharya himself. Rajarshi Bhupendra Kumar Modi, are you with us? The floor is yours. Big applause.
Thank you, Christine. Am I audible? Am I audible? Steve. Can you hear me?
So, Dr.
Yes.
Modi, do you hear? Yeah, so what is the
You can
end
hear me
game?
now? Yeah.
Yes, we hear you. We
Yeah.
ended with Shazia saying, what is the end game? And we ask you if you could take it from there.
Thank you very much for having me, Christine. I think my greetings to all my brothers and sisters who are gathered together at United Nations Hall. United Nations, as you know, was formed in 1945 with a view to change the end game of the war. Unfortunately, one of the mistakes, in my view, which happened, that United Nations was housed in New York rather than in Switzerland. If you look at the last two wars, the Switzerland played a greater role in terms of bringing peace on these wars. I think it's time that the United Nations is shifted its headquarters to Switzerland, and that's why I'm very glad to mention this in the Swiss Hall of United Nations. I think this world is, as you know, is going through a change. We all know what's happening. There is no secrets. So people feel they are playing a secret game so that everybody knows whose side who is, what is the end game in their mind on the both sides. And I think to understand this, I think we have to have the new thinking which has been just taught by other people to bring young people and let them talk. And one of the things which I feel is changing the world is the woman. The woman today is becoming the part of a decision-making process which has never been before. In the past, the woman was suppressed through the constitutions, the religious books, and the various social systems and understanding. And that today, that's why I'm very keen that we were able to tie up with Christine, who is running WIN for many years, so that we can come together to provide this new leadership in the hands of women, which can bring the change in this game. The second most important thing, I think, is that we have created these nations, which today has no meaning. So now we are entering into a space world. I heard a few minutes back there was a speaker who was talking of the new technologies and Elon Musk about bringing them in. And Elon Musk, the whole philosophy is creating the world where all technologies are through space and run by the power from the sun. In fact, sun has played a major role in all these new technologies and all these things which are happening. I am talking to you from Rishikesh. The Rishikesh is the land of rishis who have been for thousands of years, more than 7,000 years, have been pondering about what the human life should be and what is the meaning of human life. They had, at that time, nearly 7,000 years back, have come out with a measurement between sun and the earth, between the moon and the earth. The technology was so advanced in a basis because they all realized at that time the sun is the basis of all living things. Nothing on this earth, whether it's plant, animal, human, can live without sun. So sun is the real thing which makes life going. And this has been happening from the very start of the earth. And I think when people talk of God and religion, they forget the only God who we can all agree to is the sun itself. Because sun is something which is visible. It is not a God which cannot be seen. It is not a human God. It's a God with undefinite, unimaginable energy. And it is continuously using that energy to bring life to the earth and also now in the space. The sun is also generating its energy through a system of fusion, which is going to be the future power by which the earth will be done. We have understood in the past we had coal, we had oil, and we had solar energy. But I think the future energy will be fusion, which can be done at a very localized level at every small cities, because that can be like 3,000 megawatt of energy. So I think this sun is the basis on which we can find a common ground. And though we are working in different parts of the world, when I came to Rishikesh and made my new home here, after getting the Rajarshi, which is the new title, I realized that that we have to go much deeper into the human society. And we have to restructure this human society, which has been done in the past. The United Nations was a very big mistake for three reasons. One, because its location in New York, which is part of the fight, because the US was in the fight last time. And also, they made a club of 5 nations, which became the Security Council. And now this Security Council member, on one side Paris, and other side Russia, is becoming the major cause of the war, which cannot be resolved to the UN because of the vetoes both these nations had. And thirdly, it has been a place which is now being run by bureaucrats and not about people who can bring the change, the philosophy and all that. That's why 1946, after the making of United Nations, and another body was made, which was called WAFUNA, World Federation of United Nations Association. And the purpose of WAFUNA was to create the people who think like a global citizen. But unfortunately, that has not taken off because none of the nations want to lose their control by having their population think themselves as a global citizen. I am a Singapore citizen. I moved out of India, and at that time I decided to launch this United Nations, formula of WAFUNA with the will to create this body. And I'm so glad that with this body I've learned the power of woman, which is being disclosed to me, and I'm telling Christine. So there is no gender equality now. We have to think beyond gender. And that is, I think, one of the chapter of this conference, that the woman can now think as a leaders without gender, without being discriminated as being a woman. So we are having leaders who can be both men or women. So we need to think beyond gender. The last but not least is the situation which has been created by various, behind all these fights is also a religion. So we have major religions who are trying to promote themselves. And because of that, also this division takes place. And a lot of people do understand that the soft power behind this war and behind this groupism is also the religions, the Christianity, the Islamic religion, the Hindu religion, and other religions. So I think we have to go beyond. That's why I said that to go beyond religions, we have to have a concept of one God which can be accepted by everybody, including the youth. And I think in our Vedic philosophy, the sun has become the basis for that. And this is a high time that we do that. So the end game, Christine, is one is change on the old laws under which we work, the religions, the also change of the location of United Nations, and also the Switzerland, which has been always playing a role of peace in the world, should reposition themselves to take position to create this world without war. And the two vetoes nations who are fighting, we should get rid of the vetoes in United Nations so that the General Assembly can play effectively the decisions to be taken rather than the Security Council. So these major changes, unless it's done, I don't think you will stop this war. And this war is going to increase, if not decrease. And it's just the tip of the iceberg, what we are seeing now. And I said last time when I was in Geneva that the end game could be atomic war, which will be not the right thing to do. But the other end game could be the failures of the nation getting, what they call liquidated because of financial crisis. The nation can be sold in today's world if they cannot take care of their finances. And this has happened in the past when East and West Germany combined, when Russia could not sustain their nation because of economic reasons. They agreed, personally to break the nation. And that's where the East Europe came into being. And Europe was generous enough to take them in their fold. And that's why this new Europe was formed, including the countries which came from Russia. But now the Europe itself is in danger. I think the French economy itself is in danger. It may not be a situation that one of the nations who supported the Eastern Europe nations itself fall because of the economic crisis in their own nation. So that is another situation which may happen, that one of the countries may go broke, and then again the war may break. So these are various scenarios, I feel, which can be the end game. And we should seriously consider these things because these are all possibilities. Everything is changeable. We should not think that you cannot change United Nations laws. You should not think we should not change the laws of the vetoes. We should not think the United Nations cannot shift its headquarters. All these are requirements of today's time. So I wish that this August gathering will think about it, and you are at the right place, Christine. Push for this, bring UN to the place which you can make more effective. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So interesting to hear your thoughts and also looking back in history to look forward. And I think there was one thing you mentioned that was very important here also. How can we find some common ground? You mentioned the sun. What else is that we all have in common, and look for that as we find peace in the world and can again start creating even more thriving society. It's also interesting how you are shifting your location and now spending more time or your base in Rishikesh, looking deeper into human society and how we can develop from there. So I thank you so much, and I thank all of you for being part of this morning. And any last thought from you, Dr. Rajarshi Bhupendra Kumar Modi, before we all leave here for lunch? Anything else you would share with us on your vision for the future?
Well, I think, Christine, you have a great role to play. We have a great leader with you. I know you personally now for many years. You have to be more assertive and more effective to bring this change. I think in you, we have a global leader. So I would like you to be more confident about your leadership and taking a new role in this new world. And I wish all of you join Christine to give her a big hand so that we can move forward by encouraging them.
Okay, thank you so much, and I look forward to continue the collaboration. I also want to thank the Global Citizen Forum led by Rajarshi Mupendra Kumar Modi for this collaboration also. It's also very exciting for us to have more contacts in Asia, in India in particular. And it's very, very interesting to expand our mind, to expand the possibilities to impact on more people worldwide. So appreciative of this support and his leadership so that together we can do so much more. So with that, I thank you all for this morning and for calling in also. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we are going to lunch here. Yeah, then he's going. Good. So any technical? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we would like to a last applause to the whole panel here of all of you amazing speakers. And now we are going to go for lunch. If you didn't pick up your voucher, you can get the voucher from the back. And you need a voucher to eat in the cafeteria. Okay. And if you didn't order a voucher, or then you figure out another way. You pay. You pay. Okay, thank you. And see you back here at 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay. Oh yeah. And there is one more thing. If you remember, can you put it on? Put on the slide. Put it on. Put it on. One second. Ah, I forgot something. Do we have the slide? Slide. Okay. There was one. I go if you would like to share on some of the key questions we have been discussing, and we continue to share with your lunch partners because we have 2-hour long break. So I encourage you to with your partner share, or partners or new friends or old friends and colleagues, to share a little bit about how can we best find the peace going from war to peace, and also how can we embrace diversity in our communities and in your society. And last but not least, what about one habit you can do to live more sustainably? Okay, see you back here at 3 o'clock. Thank you.
Well done.
Nice meeting you.